We are going to be talking about the GPS selling system, the 101. And I wanted to start off with the 6 lessons of sales track, just a refresher here. Because what we're going to see when we go through the GPS is we're going to see these parts of the 15-second commercial, the personal and borrowed story, use of qualifiers and tie downs, the litmus test, and setting your appointment in stone. GPS sales system is, how can I put this? It is the most effective sales system that we have utilized that is duplicatable and transferable. The success rate with closing with the GPS selling system far exceeds any other system that we have tried to put in place that is duplicatable. And both of those pieces need to come into play, that it is an effective system, but more importantly, it is a duplicatable system. So with that having been said, I'm just going to jump into this, and we're going to do this in a 2-part section for the selling system of the 101. We're going to do the first section this week, and then next week I'm going to break this into a second section so we can take a little bit of time with each one of these. And these will be recorded, and these will be posted to the agent back office. So GPS selling system, what is it all about? Well, it gives you a clear path to follow so you don't get lost in the selling process. It allows you to know where your prospects' heads are and how close you are to the sale. So it's a meter, it's a guide. The GPS selling system gives you a track to run on, hence sales track, GPS. It keeps you and the client on track. And some of the benefits of doing this, obviously, are it can reduce surprises during the appointment process. If you're constantly keeping this client on track, and as we get deeper into the GPS, you'll see how it does this. It assists the prospect in selling themselves, because the reality is people love to buy, but people hate being sold. And so the goal of the GPS selling system is to get the prospect to say everything you want to recommend, to get them to say everything that you want them to do, to get the client to move into the direction that you want them to move, but not feeling like they've been pushed into it. You want the client to feel like they have fallen into the sale. You want them to slightly and slowly convince themselves through your directing and through your prompting, through your tie downs, your closing questions and things of this nature. You want to lead them in a direction where they feel comfortable that they have come to a decision about the product, about the situation that they feel comfortable and confident with. So selling, we do know, is about change, and selling is emotional. People tend to change based on pain or pleasure. And there was something I used to always tell people, and when in my early days of sales training, if you can get the client to start thinking emotionally, you're really halfway there, because people don't buy off of logic typically. They buy off of emotion. They will consider off of logic, and sometimes the logic is what moves them forward, but people typically buy off of emotion, and that's why the understanding the pain and pleasure aspect is very important when it comes to your client. Pain is the frustration, the fear, discomfort of their current reality or future reality. In our case, that would be their debt. That would be their current financial situation. That would be they feel a degree of discomfort with what their future looks like financially, or where they are currently standing financially. Pleasure has the hope and can see the vision of the possibilities to change their current or future situation. So pain and pleasure are very strong motivators to the client. And if you can dial the client into one of those or the other, the pain of their current situation or the pleasure of the hope of getting out of that situation, seeing light at the end of the tunnel, escape from bondage, the slavery of debt. I know I'm using some pretty strong language in here, but I want you to understand how impactful what you are bringing to the prospect truly is, and that this, for many people, is not just a game changer, it's a life changer, what you have to offer. So dialing into a system and getting the client on page is incredibly important. We know, again, sales is about change, but how do we help our prospects to change? People will typically change under pain and pleasure, and so They're aware of the frustration of their current situation. They're given a vision of what the future can look like and feel like, or they realize that the frustration and visions are greater motivators than maintaining the status quo. And I want to step on that one for just a second. If you can get the client truly to realize that just staying exactly where they are is not to their benefit, that they need to move forward or they need to move backwards. Most people don't want to move backwards. If you can get the individual to realize that just staying where they are is more painful than the possibility of the unknown. Staying where they are is scarier than stepping out into the unknown, than taking a chance. If you can get that client in that mindset that they are so frustrated with their current situation, you're halfway there with the client, because our product will do the job for the client, but you have to get that emotion out of the client. Before you ever engage with a client, before I believe you ever really truly engage in any type of training, before you ever engage in any type of sale, any type of interaction, I truly believe that you should approach anything and everything that you do in life with a positive attitude and some degree of excitement. My father said this to me this way years ago. He said, son, your attitude will determine your altitude. Now, there's a difference between being positive and upbeat and just being a loony bin where your eyes are wide as silver dollars and you're just all excited and amped up. Positive attitude and excitement, that genuine excitement of what you have to bring to the client, that genuine feeling of what you have for the client, that's what they're going to feed off of, is when it's genuine and it's organic. You need to understand that you are the messenger of life-changing news. What you have to share can not only change the game, but change their life forever. What I have to share financially can change generations. My goal is to just, well, let's hold up. Let's stick with these right here for just a second. I want each one of you to say each one of these aloud. Positive attitude and excitement. Please do this. I know it sounds ridiculous. I'm the messenger of life-changing news. Say it. What I have to share can change my client's life forever. What I have to share can financially change generations. Do you believe that? If you're on this call right now, do you believe that? Because you should. Because that is what the product is truly about. This is why I stayed with this company, because of the message that they bring and how impactful this is, not only on our agents' lives, but on the lives of the people that we touch. Now, in establishing this mindset, so many people are always so concerned about results. I tell you, if you devote activity, you will get results. And just the way you approach something, just the way you think about something, just the perspective can make all the difference in the world. And that's why we put it this way as the very last one. My goal is to disqualify prospects. I'm not going after prospects trying to find a way to fit them into the square or the round circle. If they're a round peg, I'm not trying to fit them into the square. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find people that fall into that sale, that fall into those categories, by trying to disqualify them each step of the way, of saying, okay, well, maybe that won't work for you. Maybe. And if you try to disqualify all the way down the line and the person still qualifies, not only do you know you have a good prospect, but it feels a lot more comfortable to the client when your attitude is one of not urgency, not one of greed, but an attitude of, let's see what this can do for. Let me tell you all the reasons maybe this won't work for you first. And because what we don't want to come across as, and we've had this around for years, and you all know this little guy, this is Gullum. And we don't want to come across as Gullum, my precious sale, my precious client. Look, we talk about the split sales process and certified field trainers. The split sale process is integral to training brand new agents that are coming on, and you can't, as a brand new agent, have that mindset of my client, my one client. I have people that have done up to 15 split sales. I have people that have done 2 split sales and are ready to go on their own. People that have done 10 split sales don't want to go on their own, would prefer to just continue doing split sales. There is no formula for exactly when you are ready to close a sale on your own, but the best formula that we have that seems to be duplicatable is follow the GPS 101, do your 2 split sales and do your 2 training sales. And at the very least, you have the information to move forward, but always be looking to your client for what will best benefit your client. If you have the mindset that this is the only client that I'm going to get, that's the way it's going to be. Know that this is a numbers game and that you have to be constantly meeting people, constantly prospecting, constantly out there trying to refill that pipe and treating your clients like they truly matter. Prior to your first appointment, you should have your client watch the videos on the client replicated website. Now, you have to judge your client as to which videos would be the most impactful for them. If you can get them to watch all of the videos on the replicated website under the URL videos, then more power to you. But I would suggest, if you're brand new, go to your replicated site and make sure you watch the videos that's on the opportunity site, the sales site, and the video site. Make sure you go in there and you watch them so you know what information you're sending to the client. But prior to meeting with your client, you want to send them the videos. You want to bring them up to speed. You want to send them something that's informational about the product. Express interest and agree to get their analysis run to see if they qualify for the program. You want to get this client moving in the direction that they have an interest to move forward with you. So when you send them the videos, say, look, I'm going to send you some informational videos. I want you to look at these. What I'd really like to do is have the opportunity to get together with you after we watch these videos so we can run a quick analysis to see how this program may work for you. Send them the analysis worksheet. And this is something I'm very particular about. We hear a lot of people saying, oh, just, get the average of what the mortgage is and what the interest rate and what the payment is. No, the more accurate your information is, if you can get them to fill out the analysis worksheet, that is awesome. Have them fill it out with source documentation with the most accurate statements. If they're the type of people that aren't going to fill out the worksheet, at least make sure that they have compiled all of their debt with their most current statements and itemized as much information. The more itemized you are, the more information you have, the better for the client. And the other thing, I have a lot of agents that come back and say, Mac, I don't want to get that detail with the client. But you need to understand something, that the more detailed you get with the client, the deeper you're getting in with the client, the more rapport you are building with the client. Yeah, it's a longer process, but you have a much clearer picture. And the more detailed it is to you, obviously, when you give the results, the client's going to know, man, I really detailed everything out, and I'm still going to pay off in 9 years instead of 30. This is awesome. I got to know more. All right, so how do we give presentations that win? What do we mean when we say presentations that win? Well, the first thing is we don't want to give one-legged appointment. All decision makers need to be present at that first appointment. If you're meeting in person, present at the kitchen table or a non-distracted location, office or study, have everybody there. Make eye contact. That doesn't mean you stare them down and you grill them down, but make eye contact. Be friendly, be professional, be upright. Be relaxed, be energetic. And what I mean by this is be yourself for the most part. And what I mean by that is there needs to be a comfort with this, bringing this information to the client, that you are comfortable in your skin with this information, that you're confident. That's really the best word I can think. You are confident in the information that you're going to give to this client, that this is going to be life-changing. You are confident in the information that you're going to bring across to them, that this is something that will be good for them. And this is if you're meeting in person. Now, obviously, think about things like, You want your clothes to be pressed. You want to make sure that your hair has been brushed. People make the most outrageous assumptions about other people just based on what they see, that visual, that first look. So if you're meeting in person, you obviously have to be a lot more aware of your shoes and your hygiene and the clothing that you're wearing and how you sit and how you look at them and how you direct. Meeting in person is truly an art, but I will tell you, meeting on a webinar is truly an art as well. We have some people that have been doing this, and I'd say about 80% of our business now is occurring over webinars. And if you would have told me that 5 years ago, I would have believed you, but I wouldn't have thought it would have happened this quick. And we're finding more and more duplicatable systems that operate over this webinar venue, and we're expanding and we're learning as we go, as a company, as a field. But if you're meeting in a webinar, and sure, you're in a quiet place with no distractions. I got to tell you this. I was sitting there listening to somebody that was talking. I was sitting there listening to somebody that was talking on the phone, and I could hear chickens in the background. Chickens. Now, I don't know about you, but, stuff like that happens. And I think people with COVID and, the advent of webinars, people are understanding. They hear the dog bark and they hear the doorbell ring, and it's like, oh, just do your best to be in a quiet place. Maybe go to the study, maybe go to your office, close the door, maybe be in a defined, tell the kids, hey, look, for the next 45 minutes to an hour, if you could just keep it down, if you could play outside. You want it to come across as professional as possible. Turn on your video camera or have a profile picture of yourself. Now, this in particular, if you're the type that can interact on a video cam, by all means, turn on the video cam because it makes it very personal. I don't know about the profile picture, just me personally. It's just kind of a still flat, but yeah, it does allow them to see who you are and what you look like. But just know that in these type of presentations, whether you're meeting in person or whether you're meeting over a webinar, how you look, how you approach it, and what you say is very important. Your demeanor, your attitude, and your professionalism. So in the first appointment, what are we there for? What is the real thing we're trying to do for the first appointment? Well, we have a couple items on the docket that we are trying to accomplish. And the first one is to create emotional connection, to build rapport with this client. We maybe had a short introduction, maybe told them a 15-second commercial at a B&I meeting, or maybe we were introduced to them by somebody else, and we told them a little bit about it, and they seemed interested, and we moved them to the point of, well, would you want to, set up some time so we could get together and do an appointment? Maybe you went through the first part of this GPS selling system with them to get to the point where they're like, yeah, I really want to know more, and I want to find out more of what this is. So there's three types of people that we can help, and you do this through truth funneling and dream building. The truth funnel is where you refine that prospect so far down that you've tried to disqualify them every step of the way, but they are still in your bucket. And this is also, what would you like to accomplish? Help them dream a little bit outside of the box. What would their life look like if they didn't have this burden of debt, or if they had multiple properties, or if they could afford to go on that vacation? Because we know the entryway could be many different items and topics. It could be, I'm sick of spending all that money and interest that I pay on my mortgages. I'm sick of living paycheck to paycheck, just paying my debts. I'm sick of all the credit card debt that I have. I'm sick that I haven't gone on a vacation in the last 5 years. I only go to dinner one time a month now. It can be whatever that is. And creating that emotional connection with that client, and then taking them through the truth funnel and the dream building, and using your qualifiers and your tie downs like we talked about, establishing these rules of engagement. You want to input the numbers from the analysis worksheet on this first appointment. Show your personal analysis report if you have one. If you are not an individual that has debt, it is not mandatory that you have debt to sell this program. It is not mandatory that you purchase the program if you do not have debt in order to sell the program. So if you do not own the program, you do not have debt, show an example report of somebody that you've run, or somebody in your line, somebody in your team, something that is realistic to the client. Demo the program if time permits. And demonstration for me, I just want you to know, for me, my greatest selling tool was always demoing the program. That was just for me. I could give them little videos or explanations or, napkin closes and do all this other information. But when I would sit down to a demo and I would show them how the money actually moved, that's when it was all of a sudden I could see the light bulb just turned on in their head, and they're like, oh, okay, I get all this stuff that you've been trying. So if you have that client that just isn't quite getting it, I mean, they're kind of getting the concepts, they're kind of getting the idea, and you can tell that they're eager or they're anxious or they want the information or that this would really help them. Let them off the hook and say, look, instead of looking at all these numbers, let me just give you a demo of the program. Let me show you how this comes together. Now, the demonstration doesn't have to be their numbers, and I never did it with their numbers, but the demonstration, I just pull up our standard John and Rebecca Jones checking and savings method, and I would just show them if we get a pay increase, if we get a pay decrease, show them some basic functionality of how a paycheck comes in, how if you lose money, you spend more money, how the program automatically adjusts. And that was always my best. And then at the end of the first appointment, you never, ever, ever, ever leave your first appointment without setting your second appointment and getting a commitment. And as we saw on Sales Track, that's called setting the appointment in stone, setting that appointment and getting that commitment. So you're now talking to the client. You say, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, typically I find I can help 3 different types of people. We're actually talking about what we're doing with the client. Everything that's been leading up to it is give you your mindset, what you should be looking at, and what you should be doing in the appointment. Now we're in this first appointment. 3 different types of people. People that are burdened by debt and want to get rid of that debt very quickly. That's one type of people that I can help. People that want to rapidly create equity in their homes so they can leverage that money out to use it for investment purposes, stocks, real estate. That's the second type of person. The third is people that are looking to earn extra income or possibly one of these other, and a combination of, do any of these or combinations of these sound like you? Now, I want you to understand something. In the sales mentality, when you ask a question, once you ask it, let it hit the ground, give them enough time to process it, and give them enough time to answer. Do not let nervous speech interrupt and have you ask something. So when you say, does any of these sound like you, go silent, maintain some eye contact, maintain a relaxed status. This is where you listen and you let them talk. What about that appeals to you? Can you be more specific, okay? So does this sound like you? Yeah, it sounds like me as the individual that wants to earn extra money, or it sounds like me as the individual that wants to increase the equity in my holdings and leverage that equity out so I can invest that. So the person says, yeah, well, what about that appeals to? Can you be more specific? Well, yeah, I want to have multiple properties. And how long has this been a problem, and what is it costing you? Or in this case, if it's the multiple properties and real estate investment, how long have you been thinking of doing this? Or are you doing something similar to this? If you're not doing it, what do you think it's costing you by not doing it? Do you have friends that are, what put you on to this? So the questions become very organic depending on what that subject is. But what you're doing is you're probing and you're asking open-ended questions that cannot be answered with a yes or a no. That's the whole idea of an open-ended question. You're digging here. What have you done to try to solve this problem, and how has that been working out for you if they've been in debt? What have you done in the past to try to get multiple properties? Do you have multiple properties? Have you been able to invest in real estate or stock, or is this a new thing that you want to do? If you are currently doing it, are you just wanting to accelerate it? How do you see this as a fit? How is this affecting you personally? How does this situation make you feel? Why do you suppose what you have tried hasn't worked so far? That could or could not be a question for you. What would your life be like if you didn't have any debt? What would you do differently? Would you work a different job? Would you do something different? Have you considered just leaving things the way they are instead of addressing the issue? And see here, this is the one that I like the most. What happens if you just leave things the way they are? And you just keep going. Can you see an end to it? Do you see progress through that? Or are you at a place where you physically know that you need to make change now, and you just need a direction to change. What would happen if I could not help you, if I couldn't help you change, if you were stuck in the situation you're in? Or more importantly, why is it so important right now? You know, you heard everything that I said about getting out of debt in our program, giving you a track to run on and doing all, and you watch the videos. Why is it so important right now? Well, you know, Heidi talks about a young lady that she did, and she had been concealing credit card debt from her husband, and she told Heidi that she just felt filthy about the fact that she felt like she'd been lying to him, which she had, if she hadn't told him about the credit card debt. And when she was asked the question, why now? And she's like, if I can't resolve this, it could impact my marriage. So this is very important to me. So you need to ask these questions and be empathetic and be a good listener, and they will walk you down the path. I guarantee you, in this section right here, most people will tell you exactly what you need to hear in order to close them. They will tell you exactly what they need to hear. Creating this emotional connection, we know the problem, the need, or the goal, the reason why this has not been solved, the impact to the client personally, and the consequences if nothing changes. Okay, so by taking them down this question section, you're trying to solve these, the problem, the reason, the impact, and the consequence. This is what you are really trying to solve and find out for the client, because the reality is this: if you don't have a clear problem or goal on the table to solve, then you don't have a sale. You're just talking speculation until it becomes reality. And do not move on to the next step until you have that pain or pleasure on the table, until you have that situation, that consequence, the impact. You've really dug into this, and now what have you done? It's emotionally charged by the client. Remember, we said we want them to fall into the sale. By asking them these questions, they are recanting, they are reliving, they are reminding themselves of the problem, and they are reminding themselves the reason why it hasn't been solved, and they are reminding themselves of the impact, and they are reminding themselves of the consequences if nothing changes. Establish the rules of getting them. This is where you talk and they listen. So get permission to ask questions. It's one of the first things that I say that you do in any sale. How about I take a few minutes and explain how I work, because this might be a very short meeting. I'm certain you have questions for me, and I have questions for you. Typically, I take a financial snapshot so I can get a picture of who you are. Some questions might be personal, what your home is worth, interest rates, etc. Would you be okay with that? Is that okay with you? Rules of engagement. I know many people say, "Oh, that's just ridiculous." No, I've used this section in every sale I've ever done in my entire life, because it establishes that you have a process. It's just like with a mortgage broker. I used to tell people when I did mortgages for them, I would give them a process. What we're going to do is I'm going to send you what they need in the way of supporting documentation. I'm going to reach out to you for that supporting documentation. If you don't supply me that information within 72 hours, your file is going to go over to the side of the files that I am not paying attention to. And it's because you wanted this to be a constant process, and you want people to know that you have a process. So is it okay if I take this financial snapshot, ask you a couple questions about your finances? Does that sound good to you? Purpose of the meeting, the purpose of our first meeting, just this first appointment, is determined. It's one thing, if we're going to have a second meeting or not. The purpose of our first meeting is to determine whether or not we're going to have a second meeting. The number of meetings, why do you bring that up? I just say to them, look, this is how I usually do it. You might discover before I do that a second meeting isn't necessary. Right after our first meeting, you might decide, you know what, this is not for me. If that's the case, I'm hoping you'll be candid enough to tell me. Okay, if we get through this first appointment, there's no point in the second appointment, just be candid enough to tell me and tell me why. On the other hand, if I discover that I can't help you, I'll be very candid and let you know in this first appointment that this really isn't for you. Is that fair enough? Will you be candid with me? I'll be candid with you. We have an open table. It's not going to, create any animosity to it, between us. So generally, this process takes 2, sometimes 3 meetings. Generally, this process takes 2, sometimes 3 meetings. Listen, I just want to say something right here. We advocate a 2-step sales process. That is how all of the sales I did in my test market that I did over the telephone, every single one of them was a 2-step. I had the first call, and the first call, we didn't have all the visual aids and everything that we have now. The first call was educating them about the product. The second was our first appointment was to get their numbers, okay? So that was the whole purpose for it. And I did do typically a 2-step process with these clients. So to tell them that generally this takes 2 steps, yeah, it does. But the reason I'm bringing this up, if you have a client that is ready to go, I mean, they've heard enough. They know they want to buy. They know they're in. For the love of everything that's good in sales, don't feel like you have to check a series of boxes. Now, that's going to be the oddball out. That's going to be the oddball client. But if you have a client that's just ready to go that says, look, I did my research. I watched the video. I get it. I need to get out of debt. I want to buy it. How much does it cost? Run my analysis. Let's do this now. You don't say, hold up there, Mr. Jones. We got to go back to the 15-second commercial. Let me tell you why I'm there. Okay, so there's a common sense that goes along with the GPS selling system. So in the rules of engagement, how do we end our relationship? See, I've told them how I'm going to approach them, how many meetings we should have, what type of information we're looking for, and how do you end the relationship with me? By the end of that time, most of my clients either look at me and say, no, this is not for me, which, by the way, I want you to understand is perfectly okay with me. It's okay if you tell me no. I'll just close your file and move on. We'll shake hands. I don't know that I'd say I'll close your file. We'll just stop the process right there. We'll shake hands. On the other hand, should you say, yes, this program is for me, then we'll go ahead with the necessary paperwork and move forward. If we need a third meeting, and by the end of that meeting, you still have to think about it, let me just tell you, I can assure you this program is not for you. So please just tell me no outright. Now, listen, I have done some closings on the 3rd and the 4th appointment. It's very rare. But usually it's better, but if they're going for that 3rd appointment and they really push for the 3rd, don't go for a 4th. But in that 3rd, make sure you're established with them. Hey, look, obviously you've been on the fence about this. It's really been a hard decision. Can I get back in touch with you in 90 days? Just since you're not going to buy today and we've had 3 appointments, can I just get back in touch with you in 90 days? Okay, if we need a 3rd meeting, all right, so let's get started. So you're really giving them the rules of engagement. We want a clear yes or no by the end of 3 meetings. This is what we want, and this is what I'm telling you. You're not saying this to the client. If they cannot make a decision by then, just in your mind as a salesperson, think of them as a no, move on to your next client. If I need to think about it, okay, I need to think about it. I need to think about it or waste of time. They're time wasters. False objections is the most highly destructive sales phrase a salesperson can hear. I need to think about it. That means you didn't set it up. You didn't have all the decision makers there. If you get to that place, something along your process went sideways. I want you to understand that we as salespeople, you're not telling the client this. I'm telling you this. We do not lie awake in bed wondering about our prospects. I know we've all had it. We gave the best presentation we've ever given. We dotted all the I's. We crossed all the T's. They're going to save hundreds of thousands of dollars interest. They're going to take decades of payments off of their loan debt situation, and they say, I need to think about it, or no, or it's just not for me. It's bewildering to me. But don't lie awake thinking about that. We know when to celebrate new clients and when to move on from disqualified prospects. You can't just have a process just drag on and drag on and drag on. Input the numbers from the analysis worksheet. And I'm going to tell you this. Do not do this ahead of time. Do this with the client. Input the numbers with the client. This, to me, is one of the most important steps of this process. Use this time to build rapport and dig deeper. Build the relationship. Talk to them about the credit card debt. Talk to them about, was it a refinance? Talk to them how long they've been in the neighborhood, how long they've been in this house. Where did they move from? What do their kids do? Where do they go to school? Where did they learn as much as you possibly can and ask these questions and write them down and make notes and listen to their comments and their questions. Oftentimes, these are the precursors to objections that will come up later if left unaddressed. These also can be the exact statements that will lead you to the close, the things that are important to them. Take notes on these, but do not address them yet. Just, when they're saying them, wow, they don't like giving all that interest back. They haven't taken a vacation. They haven't gone out to dinner. One of their kids is getting ready to start college next year. The other kid's getting ready to start driving. They have to be thinking about another car. They have to be thinking. Start taking these notes down. How can you formulate this program to help them out of their current situation? You'll be tempted to show the analysis results on the first appointment. Please don't. This is something I used to do on the first appointment. I would say, okay, great. I've got all the numbers that I need. If I was at my time originally, we didn't have web conference, so it would literally be, give me just a moment. I want to look over the numbers here, and I want to make sure I have everything. Well, since we didn't have web conference and I was doing this over a telephone, I would just say, hold on. I'd look at it. I'd press enter, and it would pull up an analysis, or it wouldn't. And if it pulled up the analysis, then I'd look over it, and I'd go, okay, I'm going to save them this much and that. But I wouldn't tell them that. What I wanted to know is that I had all of the information I needed to create an analysis in that first appointment. Now, moving more up to date in context, if you're sitting in their house and you've input all the information, say, I just need a moment to dot the I's and cross the T's. What you're checking to see is, will it produce an analysis, or did you put some information in wrong? So say to them, look, if you need to take a bio break, if you'd like to get a drink of water, I think I have all the information I need. Turn the computer away from them and hit enter and see if it, hit view report and see if it creates a report. Or if it comes up that you have errors that you need to correct. If it comes up with errors that you need to correct, you're still at the table. You could say, okay, can I have you all back in here? Can I ask you a question about this because this isn't calculating? Can I ask you a question about this because this isn't calculating? You have them there. You want to make sure before you leave, you can create an analysis from the information that you have that is beneficial to that client. Don't doctor it, but make sure that it produces. And now if you're on a web conference, it's real easy. Say, give me just a moment. You pause the screen. You go over and you say view report. And the report comes up. You look at it. There's a reason why, because you're looking for how much money you're going to save them in the first appointment, and you're looking for how much time. But you are not going to show them the results in that first appointment, okay? The other reason you don't typically show them the results in the first appointment is it can help you avoid embarrassing errors, and it keeps them wanting and anticipating until your next meeting, your second appointment, okay? I used to even tell people, I'd say, okay, I have all the information that I need, and they'd say, well, can you send me a copy of it? And I'd say, well, I don't have that just yet for you. When we have our second meeting, I'll go over the numbers with you, and we'll see where we go from there. Now, I can tell you, when I had second appointments with people, if they did not buy the program, I did not give them their analysis. And I've had people say, well, why in the world is that? Because they don't have anything to look back on. They have nothing to reference. They just have a memory. They could have saved 20 years in debt and my name. If you send them a copy and they don't buy, they have no reason to get back in touch with you. So in that first appointment, you're trying to establish this rapport. Do it through inputting the numbers. Don't show the analysis on that first appointment. Make sure it generates an analysis. And then close up that first appointment. Show them your analysis report. Now, if that is, quid pro quo, you show me yours, I'll show you mine. Personal credibility, law of reciprocity, and it builds curiosity. If you do not own the program, use an example analysis report. Just say, look, this is what my report looked like when we have our second appointment. When I come back to you, I'm going to be presenting you with something that looks very similar to this. But it'll be your numbers and your situation. But I just wanted you to see what it did for me or what it did for one of my clients just prior to me having this appointment with you. Demo the program. If time permits, use your own account if possible. If not, use the demo account in your back office, which I think is perfectly fine, and it gives them the idea. Show a few key points and features. If you go to agent training in your agent portal, agent back office, you will see that there is a demonstration script. You can go to that script and it'll take you through a good demo of your client. Script in agent back office addresses potential objections from earlier. If they said, well, what about this or what about that, you can possibly show them in the program how that would be handled. And this is what they're buying. Build excitement. Show them, isn't this cool? You know, when you show them that you lose money but it stays on track, or you get a pay raise and it takes a year off, or show them how interactive it is and how unique it is to anything else that's out there on their appointment. So set the second appointment and get a commitment. Give them two options. Remember we talked about setting the appointment in stone? Through this process, you've used qualifiers, you've used tie downs, you're using setting your appointment in stone. You've asked them questions. You may have interjected your personal story, your borrowed story, your 15-second commercial. All of this is integrated into this GPS selling system. So we give them two options. Why? You give them more than that, people get confused. When would be a good time for you? I have openings Tuesday at 5 p.m. or Thursday at 12 noon. Give them two options. If not that, give them two more options. If that doesn't work, say, can you give me two options? But only go with two options. Get a definite confirmation from the customer and make sure that all parties will be present for that first appointment. Get that confirmation. Can everybody make it? We went over that with setting the appointment in stone, how you get confirmation to make sure that. Now, remember I said at the end of the first appointment, what you're trying to do is make sure that it generates an analysis, and you want to look at that analysis, not disclose it to your client, to see how many years you're going to save and how much money they're going to save before you ever leave that first appointment. And that's because one of the best closing techniques I've ever seen is called the if I could, would you? And it's okay. By the way, let's say, I don't know, let's say I could take 5 years off of all your debt. Well, you've already looked at the analysis and you're taking 10 years off. Let's say I could take 5 years off your debt, and I don't know, I could save you $50,000, $60,000. You've already seen the analysis and you're taking $70,000, $80,000, $90,000. Is there any reason you wouldn't want to do business with me other than price? Is there any reason you wouldn't absolutely have to have this as part of your finance? If you know you're saving them $150,000 and taking 10 years off, you might say, hey, I don't know, if I could save you 7 years and save you over $100,000 in interest, would there be any reason you wouldn't want to do business with me? I never used to say other than price, but other than price, you can say that, and that makes them feel more comfortable. They can say, yeah, they can commit. But I used to say, hey, if I can take 5 years off, I can save you $50,000. Is there any reason you wouldn't want to do business with me? Any reason you wouldn't absolutely have to have this as part of your breakdown? And that's why I'm going to stop with you all this evening. This leads you up to your second appointment. So everything that we have talked about up to this point is closing down your first appointment, setting your second appointment in stone, having the material and information that you need to generate an analysis. If you have followed the GPS, you have given them a good overview of the product, they have a good understanding, and you have built rapport with the client through going through the analysis numbers and going through the pain of their current situation with them. Next week, we're going to do the second half, which will be the second appointment, and we'll close this out for the GPS selling system in the 101. I want to thank everybody for joining me this evening for this presentation. I hope this has been very beneficial to each and every one of you. So let's get out there and do it big. Let's get out there and do it right. But at the very least, let's get out there and do it right now. This is Max Saunders saying bye-bye for now.